Welcome to our Living Stones podcast, where we gather to discuss all matters of faith and life as members of God's household. In a world that often leaves us feeling fragmented and disconnected, our hope is that Living Stones will help to further connect us as we pursue the Lord together. I'm your host, Davina, and if you missed part 1, make sure that you go back and listen to it because it is an introduction of Business Pregnancy Center and what they do. But today, for this episode, we'll be continuing this very critical dialogue by diving into some of the broader questions surrounding the abortion laws, practices, the medical realities of abortion, and so on and so forth. There's so much to talk about. So again, I'd like to thank Kelly for being here. And let's get right into it.
Okay.
So what are the current federal and Virginia state laws on abortion?
So following the reversal of Roe, abortion regulations were pushed back to the states. So the answer to the question in terms of a countrywide policy is they vary greatly, and we know that. In the state of Maryland and in the District of Columbia, abortion is available until 40 weeks. In the state of Virginia, and I should be quoting this correctly, I believe it's 26 weeks and 6 days, abortion is legal.
Okay.
However, there's an amendment in Richmond right now that is being considered that would make legal abortion in Virginia up through 40 weeks.
It's a term.
Yeah. So I would expect that we should just consider that is something that is on the table for every state in the country going forward. Once a vote goes our way, it's not off the table. It'll be back for the next round. So it's something that just needs continual prayer.
Okay. What is the legal status of abortion after the Supreme Court's decision in the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization?
Yeah, basically that was the decision that returned the decision to the states.
Okay.
So it varies. And if someone's interested in finding out in which states it's legal at all, or, at what point it's legal in a particular state, that's a quick Google search, and it shows you every state and at what point abortion is legal or illegal.
Okay. Do you know at all off the top of your head, like which states are like the most the shortest term versus the longest term?
I'm going to be careful here because I don't want to get this wrong, but I mean, it's not surprising in the more conservative states.
Like Texas?
Yes. There are greater restrictions, or I would say that they protect life longer. In the more liberal states, you can get abortion up till 40 weeks.
I see. Do you know at all how the comparison of the abortion practices here versus other countries?
Yes. And this was one question that I was surprised to find an answer on. And unfortunately, I didn't see this before I came today and should have. But if my memory serves me right, and again, this is an easy Google search, but believe it or not, the United States is on the more permissive end of the spectrum. There are countries, because we tend to think of the United States as the center of the world, it is not. And there are countries that don't allow abortion at all. I wouldn't have thought that those existed. There are others that are very permissive and liberal. But in terms of the time at which a woman can legally get an abortion, we are on the extreme end.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some perspective to have.
We tend to look at just Western Europe. I mean, those are the countries that we focus on. And there are some very liberal, policies there. But the United States is leaning on the extreme end.
Yeah. And that's kind of a challenge too on the danger of just kind of looking within compared to seeing how everyone else does it. It kind of gives you perspective on our country too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about abortion. What are the most common types of abortion?
So there's really two types, surgical and chemical. Surgical was the kind that, 30 years ago was really the only kind that we talked about. But now chemical abortion, also known as the abortion pill, is the primary way that abortion is carried out. The statistics to tell you exactly what percentage are chemical abortions are not good because, as I expressed on the last podcast, anybody can anonymously and confidentially get that abortion pill sent to their mailbox. So there's no record that there was actually ever a pregnancy. There's no medical record in many cases. So the stats aren't good. But it's an estimated, I'm going to say conservatively, 80% of abortions today are chemical abortions.
My goodness. And for the pill, how far in your term can you take that?
10 weeks.
Up to 10 weeks. I remember you mentioned that. That's the maximum.
Yes. And I mean, that is established by pharmaceutical companies. That's not a pro-life or a pro-abortion perspective, but that can endanger the woman if she takes that too late in her pregnancy. I think that maybe they've changed it to I shouldn't say this. I'm not sure. It could be 11. But let's say it's 10 to be safe.
Yeah.
Safe for her. That's what it has. That's what's usually put out.
But then with these anonymous and like these anonymous people filling out these forms, how do you know if they really are ordering these at 10 weeks? It could be further too.
They can order it whenever they want. They could order it at 35 weeks. The issue is it's a danger for her. So that's the bad part. And the truth is most people are just not really clear on the dating. And we see that in the clinic. People, women come in thinking they're so many weeks along and they're actually much further. So
that's true. They don't even know.
Right. Which can be fine if you're getting an ultrasound and you're not taking a pill. But if she's taking that abortion pill, it can be very dangerous for her to take that too late.
Goodness.
I mean, people are sometimes off by 6 or more weeks. Yeah. So
that's a large number to be off by.
Yeah. Or more.
I'm sorry.
Sometimes.
I think I'm still shocked by the removal of the medical oversight.
Yeah.
Okay. But do you know when it is? I mean, I know in the last episode, we talked about how for an ectopic pregnancy, that is different from an abortion where you're saving the life of the woman and how that baby can't come to term anyway, like can't have life anyways.
Right.
In what cases would abortion be absolutely necessary to save a woman's life?
Yeah, abortion is never absolutely necessary. Well, let's put it this way. A doctor's obligation is to save the life of the mother.
With some of my more liberal friends, sometimes, even though they can't think of an instance, that an argument would be for pro-choice. Well, what if the woman's life is at risk? But I guess even in your experience, you haven't heard of a story where...
Right. Well, there was... again, this is where something can be misrepresented. There was a lot of attention given to 2 stories. I don't remember. It was last year, and it was around the time of the vice presidential debates. And I remember because it came up in that debate. And 2 women both took the pill, and they both died. And they were both, I believe, from states where abortion was not legal. And so the claim was made these women could not get the health care they needed. They had to go to another state, and they died as a result. Well, that's not what happened at all. They did take the pill. They were in states that didn't do abortions. And that's about where the information stopped. I'm going to turn to some of my notes so I get this right. Let's see. One of them, she didn't know the gestational age of her baby. She ordered the abortion pill online. They were delivered to her home. She took them and administered her own abortion. In addition to the mifepristone and misoprostol in her system from the pill, she was found with a lethal combination of painkillers, including fentanyl. The other woman was handed pills across a clinic counter, then returned to her home state to abort her preborn twins without pre-assessment or medical oversight. So when you think about compassionate health care, and I think this is where we get hung up. I mean, we're afraid to say anything when someone says, how can you deny a woman compassionate health care. Well, I certainly don't want to deny anyone compassionate health care. But in the case of these two, I'll call them two poor women, they should have been provided a clear understanding of the abortion process with informed consent and the risks involved. I mean, they weren't. They got a pill handed across the counter and another one was ordered online. An explanation of the physical and psychological risks of abortion. True medical care would have included pre-assessment, evaluation for coercion, informed consent, all of that. They weren't given any alternatives to abortion or an explanation of options, long-term support and resources, or hope for the future. And I believe that in the case of one of them, the baby or babies, I don't remember which one it was, their life had ended. And because the doctor that they eventually went to see at the hospital was afraid of getting punished for performing an abortion, he did not, or she, I don't know, did not intervene when they should have. The babies had already died. So this was not an abortion.
Yeah.
And in any case, a doctor is always supposed to intervene to preserve the life of the mother. And she ended up dying from complications from the abortion pill because she didn't get the medical attention that she should have. Now, this has nothing to do with her state not offering abortion. None of those consequences. So, two terribly sad stories. But all we heard is, abortion's not offered in their state and they died. Therefore, it was the law that was to blame.
Yeah.
That had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But again, we tend to take sound bites. And if we're not willing to dig a little bit, we're going to end up with some false conclusions.
Yeah. I mean, very clearly, it was the doctor's fault.
Yeah.
He should have known that he needed to preserve life. And that pill that was handed to her is very interesting.
Right. Now, some of your listeners are detail people, and they may say, wait a minute, I want to, they are welcome to reach out to me. And I've got studies and footnotes and whatever. I can send them to the right articles, the right sources, the right stats, because there is a lot of mixed information out there.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to think this is just what Kelly said.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure that there's even some listeners that are Googling stories where abortion was necessary. And so I wonder too, how people are taking this. But
and as you know, I can find a stat to support almost anything. It might not be a good stat, but we do need to be careful about Googling for a stat and just embracing it. Both sides are guilty of that. So we need to look at how the study was done and make sure it's well supported and it doesn't stand alone.
Right. And things get so political. Like, it also depends on who you're reading it from.
Right.
Are you reading it from Fox? Are you reading it from MSNBC? Are you reading it, who are you reading it from?
Right.
So that too, the world we live in. We did touch on the risks when taking the pill. But in general, what can you think of that are the medical and psychological risks of getting an abortion?
So I am more familiar with the psychological risks. There are medical risks, and they range from infertility to, if it's a chemical abortion, to, like I said, infection if it's taken at the wrong time. Psychological, there are studies after study after study to support that women who have experienced abortion suffer anxiety and depression on a much larger scale. And we see that firsthand by women. We offer, we call them pregnancy recovery Bible studies and support groups, and people often will participate in those decades after their abortion. So it is something that women very often carry with them for life. And they need help and they need encouragement and they need healing. So a lot of trauma can be experienced. And as I kind of graphically described earlier, no wonder they're experiencing that kind of trauma.
Yeah.
How very difficult.
Yeah. And this could also be my naiveness in this world, but I see so much of the picketing of my body, my choice, but I don't see a lot of the stories that come after having an abortion. I don't see a lot of women sharing about their joyful experience
Yeah.
after having an abortion. So I do wonder, in terms of the psychological risks, if for the most part, and I guess this is a question for you too, do you know the statistics or just any kind of idea of, I guess, the mental and the psychological outcome of these women that go in, have an abortion, and then just live their lives after?
Yeah, I've just read a number of articles, and it just they focus on personal stories about people who carry that for a long, long time, even into motherhood with multiple children. It's just not something that they are able to forget. And of course, oftentimes they're not given, if you or I were going through something very difficult in life, we would navigate that best if we had the support of others. And very often they do not because of shame or any number of things. A client come to see us, and she was a believer, and she was pregnant, and she had a lot of shame, and she was burdened greatly. I am turning to my notes because I do not want to.
That's okay.
I'm getting this from one of our, this was a story that one of our nurses shared. And by the way, just to be clear, we are highly confidential. If I ran into you at the clinic tomorrow and then I saw you at the grocery store and you were with a friend, I wouldn't even acknowledge having seen you. Any stories that I'm sharing, I am intentionally not giving you time frame, gender,
Names, nothing. Right.
But the general storyline, there are some great victories. So she was a Christian gal. She found out she was pregnant, felt a lot of shame. She came to the clinic and talked to one of our staff. Once her boyfriend found out that she was pregnant, he wanted nothing to do with her and broke up. So our nurse listened and just provided her with information on the pregnancy and encouraged her to tell her mom. She wasn't a minor, but she hadn't shared it with anybody and was just overwhelmed. After the appointment, she did share it with her mom. And while her mom was disappointed, she came alongside and supported her. And the gal came back in for a rescan. And the nurse said she looked like a different person. The burden had been lifted and she was joyful and she had the support of her mom. I can think of another story that involved, sharing the information with a mom. The mom was in another country. And there was great concern over how that would be received. And mom was disappointed. And then she embraced her and said, I am so glad you went to a place that told you to tell me.
Wow.
And they came alongside her and supported her. And it was a great ending to what was an absolute life-stopping crisis. But it's the start of a new life now.
Yeah.
So those are great stories. I don't even know what question you asked me to got me there.
the psychological implications.
Oh, okay.
And I think you were probably referencing to how, like, when these women go through the abortion and then afterwards, there may be a reason why we don't hear from them is because they went into this uninformed without any support. And this is a possible story of what could have happened if one of these women did go get help from a place like Assist Pregnancy Center, from their family member, whoever it is.
There's a lot of stories out there about trauma, disappointment, depression, everything else. I have yet to read a story about how happy somebody was. There are stories about how happy they are it exists. I don't know what's going on in the privacy of their heart or their life, but how can that?
So it is incredible how we see so much of this, like this rioting for, this protest for pro-choice.
Yeah.
but no one seems to be able to know about the woman that does it.
Right. We would never desire that for our best friend or sister.
Yeah. Especially like the loneliness of it all.
And, not everybody is, there are people who are very hardened and difficult and abrasive on the topic, but not everybody has actually thought it through who is pro-abortion. I was at home one summer day and the doorbell rang and I answered the guy, and I really don't like solicitors. And I'm like, shoot, but I said, hi. And he said, hi, I'm so-and-so from Planned Parenthood. Are you Kelly White? And I thought,
Oh, gosh.
wow, they really got their lists messed up, And I said, yes. And he said, oh, I'm just, going through the neighborhood, we are raising money, but, I just wanted to tell you what we're doing and whatnot. And I said, oh, okay. And you're looking for Kelly White? He said, yeah. I said, okay. I said, I talked to him for a while and I told myself, smile, offer him water, be really nice. And at some point I said, so how did you end up working for Planned Parenthood? And he said, well, I needed a summer job and, I don't think anybody should be able to tell a woman what to do with her body. And I said, oh, I totally agree. I said, I don't really want anybody intervening with my decisions about my body. I said, but you know what? One day I realized that while I don't want anybody telling me what to do with my body, there's someone inside of my body who doesn't have a voice and no one's speaking up for her. And I thought he'd come back with a really great answer. And he looked at me blankly and he said, I never thought about that.
Huh.
And in my head, I'm not proud of this, but I thought, oh, well, maybe you should have, But it was a good lesson for me to think, okay, these people, I need to be careful not to vilify somebody who is pro-choice because they haven't thought through that choice. They haven't thought through all of the implications.
I like that.
And that's pretty basic level, that there's a body inside that, a person who can't speak for themselves, but just never crossed his mind because of the soundbite, her body, her choice.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all for that. I want to be free to do whatever I want to do, and I don't want you to be able to tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Basic human nature, right?
Yeah. So it could take a conversation, a kindness, a glass of water.
Yeah. Well, that was the Holy Spirit telling me, Kelly.
Yeah. It could be the Holy Spirit. Like that's amazing. And that is actually good perspective too. Even for these pro-choicers, they are still people, and they are still people that need to be won for the Lord. So do you know, not that this may be very important, but the general demographics of women that tend to get abortions?
Yeah, it's not surprising. It's, women in the 15 to 35-year-old age range. Mm-hmm. I gave you some brochures that actually have some demographics on them in terms of ethnicity and age. Most of them are in the 20 to 29-year-old, other side. Oh, no, you're right. There's the camera. In the 20 to 29-year-old age group, the largest percentage that comes to our clinic is Hispanic today. It wasn't that way a few years ago. It's constantly changing, but we see people who are Hispanic, African American, Caucasian, Asian, African, other unknown. They come from everywhere. Over 60 countries have been represented in a year of people who are immigrants from other countries. Many languages come. We use interpreters when we need to. So it's women in the childbearing age range.
Yeah, makes sense. And for the minors, how is it that they usually get access to abortion? I'm sure there's, some where there is parental consent, and I'm sure there's many also that they're ashamed to share.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned earlier, you can get on your phone right now and order the pill. Also, a very disturbing story I heard in the past year of a minor who had received the abortion pill multiple times for multiple pregnancies from her school clinic.
Oh my goodness.
It was not in Fairfax County, but it was nearby. So aside from the disturbingness of that on the babies she was carrying, when you consider that there was a minor in the throngs of teenagehood and all that encompasses, who was going through relationally whatever she was going through that resulted in multiple pregnancies, and there was no adult coming alongside her through all of that, that is not caring for the whole woman. Her circumstance was being fixed. The pregnancies were ended, but she was not cared for. I mean, I'm sure there were loving people who thought they were doing something helpful, but the whole woman was not being cared for.
Yeah.
In fact, why was she pregnant so many times in a short, it was multiple in a short number of years.
And the school passed that to her?
Mm-hmm.
So are schools allowed to carry those pills?
Apparently that one was, yeah.
Oh.
Again, it was not Fairfax County, but all that to say, I'm not an expert on every school in every district and every county, but we are not in the most liberal states. So if someone wanted to get their hands on the abortion pill, it would not be difficult at all. They could get online, on a phone.
My goodness.
Mm-hmm. And now in terms of a danger to the minor, if a minor came to our clinic and reported that her partner was an adult, we have to follow the law, and we follow federal and state laws in terms of reporting. And those are the only circumstances in which, confidentiality
Is broken.
Yeah. We want to make sure that she is safe and okay. But that's only in the case of an adult with a minor.
Do you know off the top of your head, besides Planned Parenthood, that's the biggest one that I can think of, any other organizations that are pro-choice?
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like it's kind of tricky. When they say Planned Parenthood, like there's another one where like I look at the name and I'm like, oh, they're for life.
No. Yes. In fact, I told you that our umbrella organization is called Assist Pregnancy Center, but our clinic name is Metro Women's Care. And when we rebranded the clinic name, it was to make it more hopefully attractive to people seeking answers. If you look at abortion clinics in our area, they have nice names like Whole Women's Health, things like that.
My goodness.
Generic sounding. There's some that are businesses throughout the country, and some are independent, but there are more pro-abortion organizations than you can imagine.
In even the state of Virginia.
Right. I was even Googling something today, and I found one that was trying to equip activists to act against pregnancy centers. And you could enter a zip code, and it would... And I entered ours, and our name popped up, and it listed all the information about us, and people, we've had false Yelp reviews.
Wow.
There are campaigns that are initiated to do all kinds of things towards pregnancy centers, and there are people that, that's their day in, day out tasking. So aside from abortion businesses, and by the way, maybe your listeners would be interested to know, I didn't bring this number with me, but Planned Parenthood, if you go to their 2024 annual report, I wish I had that number with me, but the profit they made last year, subtract expenses from income, was huge. Huge number, in the millions. And, some of that is offset by your taxes and mine. But they are a profit-making business. So we always like to say to people, can you trust somebody who's making money off of your decision? We encourage people to come to us for that reason. We don't make anything off of anybody. They're all free services. But if a business stands to make a profit off of your decision to get an abortion, I mean, I'm not going to, it's like asking a tree guy, do you think I should have my trees trimmed?
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not, trying to speak down to tree guys, but you get the idea.
Yeah. No, definitely.
It's a huge profit-making business.
I see. What about for pro-life, like Assist Pregnancy Center? How many of those kinds of organizations are in Virginia? Are there?
That's a great question. I can't tell you the answer. I feel like there are about 6,000 pro-life centers in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think that number is accurate. There are a number of other organizations that support pro-life centers. Heartbeat International is a wonderful organization. Preborn is a wonderful organization. CareNet does a lot to support life. There are a lot of great organizations who are doing all kinds of different things.
Amazing. And I'm sure all these organizations, that the ones that you mentioned, are also advocating against abortion, not just providing services, kind of like what you mentioned in the first episode, how Assist Pregnancy Center, hopefully they're trying to figure out the SEO on Google and try to win some of these women looking for abortion. I'm sure they're doing the same.
There's all kinds of needs, and everybody's feeling a different niche. Some are in the legislative realm. Some are supporting pregnancy centers and what they do. Some are in the legal realm, like we have all kinds of legal things that we need to consider. Well, there's a whole organization that researches that and informs us on what we need to know. So, there's all kinds of different organizations in different areas.
And in terms of the thought of and the belief of abortion, pro-life, pro-choice, how do you think, this might be kind of like a dumb question, but public opinion, how has the public opinion on abortion shifted over time, and what factors have influenced these changes?
Yeah, it has shifted incredibly. And
I mean, you can go back even to way back then, right?
Yeah, if I went way back when, they'd be rolling in their graves at the thought of what we consider normal today. What are the primary factors? There's people far better qualified than me to answer that question. Sociologically, that the more something is normalized, the more it is accepted. So the more, TikTok and every social media outlet is flooded to the tune of millions with messaging that nothing should get in the way of my plans, my dreams, my hopes, that I need to look out for number one, that I should do whatever it takes to empower myself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The more that I believe that I embrace that I consider that normal, if I know 3 people who had an abortion, then it seems a lot more normal the next time it comes up. So the more anything is normalized, the more it's accepted. Yeah. And I would say that is a lot of what's going on today. Having said that, women, even women who want to have an abortion, they still come in distressed. Mm-hmm. Why are they distressed if it's normal? I don't know. I can't see inside. Maybe because God gave us an innate knowledge that that's life. Yeah. Although some people, I think, honestly, don't have that sense. So anyway, I don't know. That's a loaded question. Yeah. Why is it? I mean,
it could be a cultural question too. And it makes me think, there's the whole American dream. You kind of, you touched on it, how we need to do what it takes to do what I want to do. Right. It's amazing how over time that morphed into being extremely selfish. And then there's this support of one another to be so selfish.
Well, and as we both know, even calling something right or wrong, I mean, that's about as basic as it gets. Yeah. Even that's looked down upon because you're categorizing something, and who are you to proclaim something as right or wrong, particularly for me. Mm-hmm. Now, the reality is there is a right or wrong.
Yeah.
God sees things as right or wrong in his economy. But, our culture largely has, it's a post-Christian culture.
Yeah. And then there's and because of social media and because of the access that we have to the internet and from whoever we decide to kind of pledge allegiance to, whatever news station it is or whatever it is, that also determines like what we are influenced by, what life means.
Right.
And so I believe that that's been an ongoing conversation even in my life with my even like more conservative friends, where there's just this confusion of information.
Yeah.
And so being able to have resources like from you, from Assist Pregnancy Center, and from the list that you listed of the other sources, what would you say would be a good, solid source besides the Bible for Christians to, reference to when it comes to how to, what life means and how to value life?
Well, there's a number of great resources. Are you talking about like books and websites or whatever?
Books, websites.
There's a number of great resources, and I can give them to you to link.
Okay.
One prominent author who's written a lot on this subject is Randy Alcorn. You may have heard about him.
Mm-hmm.
He's excellent. The interesting thing is that 30, 40 years ago, the abortion advocates, or rather pro-life advocates, did not have as much science on their side. But now with the advancements in science and what we know and what we can see and what we can hear and what we can measure, science is totally on the side of life. That is life. That child can feel pain at 15 weeks, et cetera, et cetera. That's all available.
Yeah.
But the culture has shifted from, okay, well, actually, we're not as concerned about that anymore. We're more concerned about the woman and empowering her and what she wants to do, and is the timing right, and individual rights for her, not for the unborn.
Yes.
But anyway, I can link some great resources. And honestly, if we want to take the time, you and I can find anything we want online. There's some wonderful resources online. And I'd be happy to personally give somebody a good website if they have a specific type of question, whether it's concerning legislation or development or whatever the case may be.
Do you mind if I link your email address?
No, that's fine.
Great.
Yeah.
I guess some of the last questions when it comes to this topic is there anything in legislature that's being kind of talked about or wrestled with right now, dealing with this topic?
All kinds of things. I don't think I can adequately answer that right now because it's at the state level.
Yeah.
States are dealing with all kinds of different things, from age that abortion's legal, to circumstances, to there 50 states, 50 different things happening. So there is a lot happening. I will also link to you some good websites that monitor legislative developments, etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Also,
there's so many links that I need to link.
Yeah. One thing I'd love for you to link, and this is a little off topic of what we're talking about right this second legislatively, but I didn't mention in the other section. I don't know if your listeners know or they've heard of abortion pill reversal. And if not, I want them to know that it exists, because a quick Google search, they can get the number without a link. But, I mentioned that the abortion pill is a 2-pill protocol. One, the first pill stops nutrients from reaching the baby. That's mifepristone. And it essentially is a progesterone blocker. Once the baby has died, the second pill is what expels the baby. So oftentimes women take the first pill and they immediately have regret and they wish they hadn't taken it. And there is something called abortion pill reversal, but all it really is progesterone. That first pill they took blocked the progesterone, and now they're giving us a prescription for progesterone, which is naturally occurring in our bodies. And if that is taken soon, preferably in the first 24 hours, up to 48 hours. I believe the success rate it's in the 62 to 68%
wow.
effective at resulting in a healthy pregnancy. So wouldn't that be cool if one
Yeah.
person who heard this could share with a friend who had regrets? Get online right now. There's a hotline. They'll write you a prescription.
Yeah.
You get the progesterone, and there's an excellent chance that pregnancy will proceed.
Oh, nice. And that pill, can they also Google that? And
The abortion pill reversal?
Mhm.
Yeah. If they can remember the name,
abortion
reversal.
pill.
Abortion pill reversal. Or
Yeah.
it'll probably come up with abortion reversal. But yeah, they'll get a 1-800 number, and they'll be connected to a nurse.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I love that there's an option like that.
Yeah. There's
Now,
also something called optionline.org. And if people, have a friend or they personally know somebody in Cincinnati or wherever who is facing an unplanned pregnancy and they don't know where to go. It's one thing if you have a friend here, but if you got a friend somewhere else, that organization will connect them based on their location to a pro-life clinic. And I always encourage people, if they have a friend who's in that circumstance, they say, well, what do you do? What do you say? And I just say, just be a friend. What would you do with a friend? You would listen. You would care for her. You would not judge her. And you'd drive with her. You'd take her to a clinic.
yeah.
Because the women at the clinic, they do this every day. They're trained, they're caring, they're loving, they know all the answers. They know how to connect her with resources.
Yeah.
You don't know that. How would you know that?
Yeah.
But you can drive her.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are clinics like that all over the country.
There is still something that we can do
Yeah.
out here.
Yeah.
Wonderful. How about for women that did proceed with abortion and they have regrets and they need help? Well, where I know that assisted pregnancy, it clearly offers some after help.
Yeah. In fact, that's confidential. It's not even done at the clinic. If somebody's
Sorry,
interested
assisted
in that,
pregnancy center.
that's okay. That's okay. If they call, we will connect them directly with the facilitators for that. And they will meet either in a very small group or one-on-one with those facilitators. I know those facilitators. They are friends of mine. They've both had abortions. They're both wonderful believers. And they've had abortions in their past, and they know the necessity, the importance of healing from that. And they will meet with them.
Nice.
Yeah.
And my last question is, and all these last questions are mainly for references for people that are listening, whether it's for their friends, whether it's for themselves. If a woman decides to go to term, but they need resources, you mentioned how Assist Pregnancy Center is so wonderful with providing those resources, classes, and even like free ultrasounds. Are there other centers like that provide those resources?
So I can't speak to that, but I know there are a lot like ours.
Okay.
And I even know there's a national organization that we partner with that partners with centers all over the country, and they are monitoring nationwide organizations that offer services, everything from maternity housing to
Oh, wow.
free formula to diaper banks to whatever, tax advice to legal help. And they partner with those pro-life minded organizations and feed that back to the pregnancy center so the pregnancy center can connect their client
Wow.
to the needed resource. Because we can't effectively track the 300 services offered in this area.
Yeah.
Some of them are government, some of them are church sponsored, some of them are something else.
Yeah.
But they do that. That is their niche, and it blesses us to,
Yeah, be able to help them all the way.
right.
So in our local context, if there was someone like that, we introduced them to Assist Pregnancy Center, you all would be able to help her go through not just her pregnancy, but maybe even afterwards and setting up her life.
Right.
Through the different resources.
Right.
Yeah.
We will do our best to connect her, with organizations so that she will be successful. We connect people with, like I said, maternity homes. Oftentimes those maternity homes offer job services. They're connecting them and training them in skills, and they're providing childcare while the mom is at work or, any number of things. But that is what our client advocates do. And that is what we strive to do, is set her up for success.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for coming in. Did you have any more encouragements or anything that you'd like to say as closing?
I would love to just say that, God created life, and he loves life, but he loves women. And there's a lot of people. If your church was typical, that would mean that there were people there who had been impacted by abortion in one way or another, like my church, like everywhere. And that is why we follow Jesus Christ, and that is why we love him so much. He offers grace and forgiveness, and we're thankful to be able to be in the work that we do, because we get to come alongside women. And I would just say, if you all would pray for us, pray for the women who are in the clinic and the men. We have male mentors who are meeting with partners. Pray that they would have, just God's grace in serving those women, and that God would open hearts to the gospel and to life. And I'm just so thankful that you guys invited me and that you're willing to partner with Assist.
Yes.
And thankful for your congregation.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you'd like to know more about Assist Pregnancy Center, if you have any questions, I will be linking resources and the website itself right under the podcast in the description. And if you're watching from YouTube, in the description under there. So make sure that you check that out. As we come to the end of this episode of Living Stones, we hope that you've been encouraged and blessed by how God is working in and through Assist Pregnancy Center, and to honor the sanctity of life once again. If you found value in today's episode, we encourage you to share it with others. Remember that you are not alone in this journey. We are members of God's household, united by our shared faith in the Lord and the desire to grow together. So until next time, may God's grace and peace be with you all.